Shavua Tov, everybody. Welcome to Beth Gavriel. We're going to have a very special program today. I'm very happy to see so many faces, even though it's raining outside. Baruch Hashem, thank you very much. Chazaq and Baruch to every single one of you that came out. Just a small Dvar Torah on this week's parsha. We learned that Moshe Rabbeinu and Am Yisrael, when they leave Mitzrayim, what happens? All of the Jewish people, what are they busy with? They're taking out the silver and the gold and the money of the Egyptians, the spoils of war. On the other hand, what do we know? Moshe Rabbeinu, what does he do? He's busy with taking Atzmot Yosef out of Egypt and bringing it into Eretz Yisrael. So we say, look at Moshe Rabbeinu. He has a chance to become a millionaire. Mamash, getting so much money and getting so many gold, silver, and the extras of the Egyptians. But what does he decide to do? To do a mitzvah. To be busy with Atzmot Yosef and bringing his body out of Egypt. And we know that the Mefarshim teach us a lesson that when you have a chance, you have to keep in mind, like Moshe Rabbeinu, that we're in this world. Obviously, we have to do parnasah and work. But on the other hand, you have to keep in mind what's really the most important thing is to do mitzvot. There's a famous story, and with this, I'll end it. We're going to call upon our guest speaker, a very chashuva rav, very, very big rabbi. He's Rabbi Shmuel Klein, and we have over here to our left a very big Talmid Chacham that agreed to come all the way over here, so we really thank him. So we're going to have him say a few words after us, and we're going to have a whole program with music and dancing and food, and it's going to be great. So basically the story goes as follows, that there was a certain person, he didn't have enough money, enough parnasah. So what does he do? He hears about a secret. What's the secret? That if you go to a different city, very far away, what happens is that the dirt over there on the floor, you can find diamonds. So he tells his wife, give me some time, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to collect a lot of diamonds, I'm going to come back, we're going to be very, very, very rich. So what happens is, he goes to the far journey, and he goes to this no-place town, very far away, and he gets over there and he sees diamonds on the floor all over the place. Just like you walk outside right now, you see dirt, he sees diamonds, and he starts collecting and jumping and taking everything, putting in his pockets, stuffing himself, putting in bags, and he's filled with diamonds. He goes to the local restaurant, he's hungry, he's like, I'm a multi-billionaire right now, wow, I can order the whole store if I want to. But he orders the whole menu. He gets one of everything. He tells me, I want one of the salads, I want one of the steaks, I want one of the chickens, I want this, I want that. And basically what happens is, he eats and stuffs himself and he has the finest wines. It's time to get the check, to pay up, right? So he says, I'm going to pay you guys with diamonds. They're like, what do you mean? He takes out from his pocket a diamond. And the waitress says, are you crazy? Are you normal? What are you doing? This is dirt. This is garbage. It's nothing. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, by us, this is not money. We know in outer town or somewhere else, this is considered something. But by us, this is not money. Potatoes are money. He's like, what? They're like, you ordered thousands upon thousands of potatoes of food, meaning money. Now we're going to make you work in our restaurant. You have to start working as a waitress, and you're going to clean the floors, and you're going to work for us. He's like, what's going on over here? So he starts to work over there, and time passes by. He's like, what do I have to work for them? I know how to do a restaurant. I know how to cook food. What's the big deal? Their food over here is very simple. I'll open up my own restaurant. He opens up his own restaurant, and he makes so much money. What's the money? The potatoes. And becomes very rich in this town. But then he remembers, oh my gosh, I forgot. I have a wife and kids in the other town. I told him I'm going to come back. So he closes his business and he takes all of his potatoes and money to his wife. And he knocks on the door, and his wife sees him. Oh, welcome back. And she sees he's smiling. She's like, you brought it? You brought the money? He's like, yeah, I brought a lot of the potatoes. She's like, what are you talking about? And he shows her in the van, in the wagon, a bunch of potatoes. She's like, what does that smell? I can't take this. What is this? Ugh, it's disgusting. He's like, what do you mean? This is the money. She's like, you nutcase. You crazy? What is this? He's like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? You said you're going to bring back diamonds. He's like, oh no, I forgot. And she gets upset at him and she smacks him in the head and he falls down. And while he falls down, what happens is a few of the diamonds come out. Just a few here and there. And she's like, what is this? He's like, oh, this is some of the leftovers. The first day I came to that town, I filled my pockets. After a few days, I got rid of the dirt, that which is in the other town. and this is my leftovers. Same thing with us. We're going to go up to Shamayim, we're going to bring our millions of dollars, or we're going to bring our phones, or our PlayStations, or whatever it is, and we're going to be like, I'm the king, I was there. And they're going to be like, what are you doing? What is this? You're supposed to, up here, we only count mitzvot. We don't count how many phones you had, and how many friends you had on Facebook, and all this nonsense. Over here in Shamayim, we only count how many mitzvot you have, and they're going to see you have a few extra good things that you did. You helped your mother over here, or you helped your father, or you helped your spouse, or you helped this, or you helped that, and that's what's going to really count. So the fact that every single one of us came over here tonight to hear some Divrei Torah, to get inspired, is a big chizuk, and you get a big round of applause for every single one of you guys for coming. Thank you very much. I'm going to call upon right now Rabbi Shmuel Klein. He's the director of Torah Masori. He's a very big tzaddik. And please give your undivided attention, and then we're going to have a whole program afterwards. Okay? Please rise.
There's something in English called the power of suggestion. So if I was introduced as a big tzaddik, big I am tzaddik, hopefully one day. I'll start. I have to revert back to my former career. I was a principal for many years, and Baruch Hashem, I have the schus of having young people in front of me, and I remember my days as a principal. So I'll make the same introduction, well, a little bit different. I remember when I was young, it goes back maybe more than 5 years ago, and when I was a kid, I would have occasionally the temptation to speak and to play and to have just a merry old time. So I understand the temptation. So I just want to tell anyone of that age group, if you feel like playing, I'm not going to get insulted. There's a nice big hallway outside. Please, don't feel that you're going to be upsetting me. On the other hand, if you're going to stay in the room, maybe do your best to try to listen. I know that some of the things that we're going to be talking about are a little bit on a more adult level, but I think you guys look smart. You can probably handle it. But that's only if you're going to be quiet, okay? Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this is called a spudik, because I'd rather you focus on what's coming out of my mouth rather than what's sitting on top of my head. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay. Among Ashkenazim, and I'm pretty sure Sfardim as well, I don't know if all Sfardim do this, but we have a minhag that when a boy child reaches the age of 3, we don't cut his hair prior to that, but when he turns 3 years old, we give him a haircut and we make the peyot at the side of his face. And I had a grandson who underwent that experience this past Monday night. What I've done for my grandchildren who had this experience, I always buy them a little silver goblet. Sometimes it says Yeled Tov on it or something like that, as a gift on the occasion of what we call a chalake, which is not an Ashkenazic word, by the way. And this Monday night, in the customary style, we came to the chalake of my grandson, Avraham Mordechai, and we brought this silver goblet, and I told his older brother, who's 16, 17, I says, you put this away, and we'll give it to him later when he's had his haircut. And later, after the haircut, after the ceremony, and we were giving him the gifts, the various people, the other grandparents, etc., etc. So I told my older grandson, give Avraham Mordechai the little goblet, give him the becher, or we call a becher. So he took it, was in a nice box, it was wrapped up, and he gave it to the child. And later the child was asked, who gave you this beautiful silver kais? So the little child looked up and he said, Yosef Meyer. That's the name of the older brother who handed it to him. Of course, that's ridiculous. Saba and Savta brought the becher, not Yosef Meyer. It dawned on me at that time that this is actually a very, very common scenario in our lives. And that is, we get things, we receive things, day in and day out, but we don't necessarily understand where they come from. We see maybe the hand that physically stretches out to give us these things that we get, but we don't see what is driving the hand up above. We don't see what is really the prime mover of all of these things. And that's a problem in life. It's a problem, but you know what? In addition to it being a problem, it's also an invitation for us to think a little bit. Now, speaking about thinking, something we all do, right? This morning, for those of us who attended Shul, Beit HaKnesset, we read about the parting of the Red Sea. You ask any kid even, who's had some experience with the Torah, what is the most classical miracle that was done for the Jewish people during their entire history? Most of the times, people with some knowledge will say, well, sure, that's easy. Kriyat Yam Suf, the parting of the Red Sea. And that happens to be today's parsha. So we don't believe in coincidence. We believe that everything's orchestrated from above, but it's tremendously uncanny that we are meeting here tonight a few hours after we experienced the reading of the parting of the Red Sea, this great miracle. Now there's two questions that I'm going to pose to you, and hopefully in the course of the discussion we will be able to answer the questions. Question number one is this. Raise your hands, by the way, if you have some knowledge of some of the stories in the Torah about what the Jewish people experienced in the Midbar after they left Egypt. So, okay, some of you have experience. But let me tell you, most of us probably know that the Jewish people had many miracles performed for them. Parting of the Red Sea. Also food fell down from the sky. That's also mentioned in today's parsha. It's called man. And there were 10 plagues in Egypt. And much later, when the Jews went into the land of Israel with Yehoshua bin Nun, also the Yarden, the Jordan River also was parted for them. And many, many other. I can't give you the list of all the miracles, there's just so many. But this was the only time, well, the most famous time, but almost the only time, that the Jewish people proceeded to sing their thanks to Hashem. And that's in Parshat B'Shalach. One of the highlights of today's parsha that we read is what's called Shirat Hayam, the song said at the sea. Moshe Rabbeinu and the Jewish people, even the ladies later had their own singing spree. They sang a song praising Hashem for parting the Red Sea and for saving them. So you have a miracle of the parting of the Red Sea, and then you have this tremendous song. So the question that I saw asked is, why was there no song after all the other miracles? What was so different here? Right? That's the first question. The second question, which really is related, although it sounds like it's a different question, the second question is, for some reason, our great sages, the Chachamim, many years ago, centuries ago, established that each and every day when we say our tefillot, when we daven, we repeat that song. Every single day we daven, we say that song as part of our prayer. Oz, Yashir, Moshe, V'nai Yisrael, etc., etc. And we repeat the whole Shirat Hayam every single day. What's so special about that song that it had to be established for all the generations throughout our history? It accompanies us on all of our journeys. We say Shirat Hayam forever. So these are the two questions. Why did that miracle have a Shirat Hayam? And why do we say it always? I'm going to preface the answer with a story. I want you to listen carefully to this story. There was a guy who was driving along in his Alfa Romeo on a very slippery mountain road. It was after a rainfall, but it was not raining, so he had the hood open. It was a convertible, and he was driving along this mountain road. And it was in a place which was isolated completely. The nearest town was probably hundreds of miles away. And something happened and he slipped. The car skidded and was about to glide off of the precipice and fall into the great abyss below. And we know what would have happened. Somehow, the car's back wheels got caught up on a large boulder there at the side of the cliff, and he was sailing off the cliff, but the back tires of the car caught onto the cliff and he was stuck there. He wasn't falling, but he also had no way of getting out. He didn't know what to do. So, listen to what happened. As many people in that situation, he started saying a prayer to Hashem. He said, God, if you help me out of this one, I promise I'm going to be good from now on. I will pray every day. He was a Jewish fellow also. He said, I'm going to do mitzvot. I will give charity, tzedakah. I'll be as good as I possibly can. And he was praying like this for an hour. Then, suddenly, as if out of nowhere, a helicopter came by and beamed down a light on the car and on this fellow. And they got out the microphone and they said, we're going to send down a ladder. Just climb up on the ladder and you'll climb up to safety. I couldn't believe it. And that's what happened. The helicopter, was able to remain in one place. They got down the ladder, he grabbed onto the ladder, lifted himself up out of his car and started climbing up the steps, the rungs of the ladder, on his way to safety in the helicopter. And as he was climbing up, he looked up to the Shemayim, he looked up to the heaven, and he said to God, thanks anyway. So think about that for a second. What do you mean, thanks anyway? It is the nature, I guess, of the human being. That's what this story is intended to illustrate. To not necessarily accept the hand of God or to acknowledge the hand of God that's sent to us. With that thought in mind, let's try to go back and understand what the scoop is with the Shirat Hayam. I saw a beautiful interpretation in a book, in a sefer called Beit Avraham. And he explains like this. The Jews did not sing this song at the Yam Suf, at the Red Sea, because they were saved. The verse in the Torah, right prior to the song, states as follows, at the end of it. They saw the hand of God, and it says at the end of the verse, Vaya'aminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe avdo. They came to a realization that there was a Moshe who was sent by God, and they came to the realization that there was Hashem. They came to the realization that there's a force in this world, a cosmic force in this world, that really is directing our lives. So they sang not just a thanks like, hey, thanks for the miracle, or thanks anyway, or something like that. Their song of praise to Hashem was to praise Hashem for allowing them, or in a sense guiding them, to that moment of realization that there is a Hashem in our lives. There is someone that we connect with. It was because of their new Emuna, this is what we call Emuna, their faith. It was because of the faith that they were able to reach through the experience that they sang. It wasn't a song of thanking Hashem for the saving. It was a song of thanking Hashem for the Emunah that they now had. And I believe that if we understand the Shirat Hayam, the song sang at the Red Sea, in that light, we also understand why our sages may have established that we say this every single day. Because let's face it, we don't have a parting of the Red Sea every day. Those kinds of miracles, I need not say, are extremely rare. We don't live that way. However, we have to understand that really, if you believe in a God who's capable of doing everything, which is the way we do believe, our Hashem is capable of doing everything. Matter of fact, let me share with you an interesting thought connected to this. About 800 years ago, there was a great scholar named Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman. We call him the Ramban. I see a picture of the Rambam on the wall here. He was slightly after the Rambam. He passed away in the year 1273, I think, of the Common Era. The Ramban asked the following question about the parting of the Red Sea. The Torah says, you know the way the sea split? Now, you'd think, I would think if I were God, ridiculous thought, right? But if I were God and I wanted to part the Red Sea, I'd probably do something like this. And let the sea split in a split second. Because why not? Why all of the dramatization? But you know what the Torah says? You know the way it was done? Hashem brought a wind, a strong easterly wind, that blew a whole night, and it dried up the seabed, and the Jews were able to go in and then out, and we all know the story. The Egyptians were drowned after them. So the Ramban asks, why the theatrics? Why the wind? Why didn't he just do it with a zap of his divine fingers? And the answer is because Hashem allows us the opportunity to develop our faith. Doesn't force us into it. He sets things up for us so that if we really deep down inside want to continue denying the Hashem, the God in our lives, we're perfectly capable of doing that. We are capable of saying, miracle parting of the Red Sea was a tidal wave. It was a tsunami. Or some other Far Eastern word to explain what happened. It wasn't a miracle. It was a wind that blew a whole night. If it were a miracle, Hashem would have done like that. The Ramban says, exactly. That's what Hashem wants. He wants to allow us, if necessary, to make the mistake that so many people commonly make. The mistake of denying the existence of Hashem and denying the intervention of Hashem into our lives. It doesn't force us into anything. And that's why we say Oz Yoshir throughout history. To declare, I am going to make an effort to achieve that Emuna which prompted the Jews way back then to sing that song. I'm going to try to reach that. In my life today, I go to the office, I go to school, I go to the factory, I drive in the car, wherever I may go. There's so many things to drive me away from an acceptance and a realization of Hashem. Because, hey, Hashem doesn't force us into this. But if I say Oz Yosher every morning, and it's predicated, it comes after they're saying, Vayaminu ba'Hashem of Moshe Avdo, that they achieved Emuna by thinking about it, by pondering the reality of Hashem. They came to Emuna, and that prompted them to recognize Hashem. Oh, Oz Yosher, that's when they sang. That's when they expressed their connection to God, which is what the singing is about. The other kind of singing, which also has that element we're going to experience shortly, Yitz Hashem. But that song, particular, that song expressed a connection to God. They worked at it, they developed their emunah, and then they expressed their song of connection to God. And that's why Oz Yosher is something we say all the time. And I'll conclude with one additional thought. For those of you who daven and know the tefillot a little bit, I know, by the way, and this is something I've always been envious, that among Sephardi Jews, I know the Bukharim are not exactly the same thing as let's say, other Sephardim. But I know that the other Sephardim, they know the tefillot a lot better than Ashkenazim do, because they say so much of the tefillot together, and they say it out loud. So it becomes more ingrained in memory. So maybe this pasuk will be something familiar to you. You said it over Shabbat, you said it maybe 3 times. Lahagid baboker chazdecha ve'emunatcha balilot. Translated, that means we are urged to speak in the morning about Hashem's acts of kindness. And at night, we speak of of faith in Hashem. What's the difference between morning and night? Well, we all know. Morning, the sun is shining. Sun is shining, we see clearly what's going on. Those are the miracles that we can see clearly. But Baleilot means at night, when things are obscure, they're not clear, We're a little bit confused. We are torn away from thinking the right things by all the things that we have to do with our jobs, our gadgets, the iPod, with the iPad, with the tablets. I remember when a tablet is something that you used to take if you had a headache. Today it's apparently something technological. We are diverted, our attentions are diverted from what we ought to be thinking about. They're diverted by what we perhaps ought not to be thinking about. And that creates a laila. Our lives are spent in a perpetual darkness of confusion, of obscurity. So David HaMelech, who wrote those words, said, it's not a big deal in the morning when we see clearly Hashem's chesed to us to sing Hashem's praises. The brains come into the equation baleilot. That's when we work towards Emuna. Ve'emunatcha baleilot. Our lives are in laila, and we have to work towards Emuna. Emuna is the realization that there is someone who is orchestrating all of this. And there is someone who is craving a connection with us in the same way that a parent, a mother or a father craves a relationship with his or her child. And that's what we need to do. And that's a lesson that was learned today by those who thought about it perhaps. And if not, then maybe you learned about it tonight, if you were listening. So may Hashem help us all. From now we're going to sit together in small groups. We're going to do some learning. Our guys and your guys, which are really all together, our guys just wearing different clothes. We're going to sit together in groups, we're going to study a little bit of Torah, and then we're going to have some music, some dancing, and then something to tickle the funny bone of your stomach a little bit later. Thank you for listening.